In the quiet suburbs of Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, a seemingly ordinary pig farm hid one of the darkest chapters in Canadian criminal history. What looked like a rundown property with barns, freezers, and livestock was actually a slaughterhouse for the forgotten, where Robert William Pickton, known to many as Willie, lured dozens of vulnerable women from Vancouver's downtown Eastside, ended their lives in the most brutal ways imaginable, and disposed of their bodies by feeding them to his pigs or grinding their flesh into meat that may have even reached the public. This is the true story of the pig farmer killer, a case that exposed deep failures in the justice system and left families shattered forever. Robert William Pickton was born on October 24, 1949, on that very family pig farm at 953 Dominion Avenue. Raised by demanding parents who prioritized the animals over their children, he and his brother David grew up in filth, often sent to school smelling of manure and earning the cruel nickname Stinky Piggy. Pickton struggled academically, dropped out early, and worked as a meat cutter before taking over the farm full-time after his parents' deaths in the late 1970s. He and his siblings sold off most of the land for millions, leaving a 6.5-hectare plot where he lived alone in a filthy trailer. Socially awkward and strange, Pickton found his escape in wild parties. In 1996, he and his brother turned a slaughterhouse on the property into Piggy's Palace, a so-called charity event space that drew up to 2,000 people. Bikers, locals, politicians, and especially sex workers from the downtown Eastside. Neighbors complained of drugs, noise, and chaos until the city shut it down in 2000. The downtown Eastside was a world of desperation, poverty, addiction, homelessness, and prostitution. Between 1978 and 2001, at least 65 women vanished from its streets. Most were Indigenous or marginalized, many with no family checking on them for years. Pickton knew the area well from trips to a rendering plant. He would cruise the low track in his truck, offer cash or drugs, and take women back to the farm. Once there, his method was calculated and horrific, treating human lives exactly like the pigs he slaughtered daily. Trial testimony and witness accounts revealed a consistent pattern. Pickton would lure women to his trailer for sex and drugs. He often positioned them on their stomachs, on the bed, had sex with them from behind, then reached under the mattress to pull out handcuffs, a belt, or a length of piano wire. He handcuffed one wrist or both to restrain them completely. Then came the strangulation. He wrapped the belt or wire around their necks from behind and tightened it slowly while continuing the act, choking the life out of them as they struggled. Witnesses like Andrew Bellwood testified that Pickton described this in detail, noting how much the women bled once he moved to the next phase. After death or near death, he dragged the bodies to the slaughterhouse. There, he bled them out by cutting the throat or major arteries, just like livestock, letting the blood drain to make butchering easier. He then gutted them, removing entrails with knives and tools he used on pigs. Some victims were shot instead, usually in the back of the head with a .22 caliber revolver. Police found it with a dildo attached to the barrel as a makeshift silencer, though ineffective. Heads were sometimes decapitated, bisected with a reciprocating saw, power tool, and hands and feet severed with clinical precision before storage. One associate, Scott Chubb, said Pickton bragged about killing heroin addicts by injecting them with windshield washer fluid from a blue liquid syringe found on the property. Another witness, Lynn Ellingson, claimed she saw him skinning a woman's body hanging from a meat hook in the slaughterhouse, blood everywhere. He also kept items like Spanish fly aphrodisiac, possibly to manipulate victims during the assaults. Post-killing disposal was designed to erase all traces. He fed gutted bodies or parts directly to his pigs, which devoured human remains quickly. Pigs can consume large amounts in hours if hungry. Some flesh was ground up in a meat grinder and mixed with pork, potentially sold or given away. A health warning was issued after the case. Partial remains went into freezers in buckets or garbage cans. Heads with hands and feet stuffed inside. Ground meat packages containing victim DNA or bodies in slaughterhouse trash. Forensic teams later sifted through massive soil piles, finding DNA from dozens of women on clothing, boots, tools, and in freezers. The warning signs were there for years, but police missed them repeatedly. In March 1997, a woman named Wendy Lynn Eistetter fought back when Pickton tried to handcuff and stab her. She grabbed his knife, stabbed him 4 times, escaped to the road, and survived. Pickton was charged with attempted murder, but the charges were stayed because prosecutors decided the drug-addicted victim was too unreliable to testify. He walked free. In 1999, an employee named Bill Hiscox told police he had seen purses, IDs, and clothing belonging to missing women at the farm. Another tip came from Lynn Ellingson, who claimed she witnessed Pickton with a woman's body but stayed silent out of fear. Police searched the property a few times but found nothing conclusive and dismissed the reports as hearsay. Meanwhile, Vancouver police and the RCMP dragged their feet on the growing list of missing women. They assumed many had simply moved away, overdosed, or left the life. There was open prejudice against sex workers and Indigenous women. Investigations were slow, profiling was rejected, and the women's lives were treated as low priority. Families and advocates marched every Valentine's Day demanding action, but the system failed them spectacularly. Everything changed on February 5th, 2002. Acting on a tip about illegal guns, police raided the farm. They found unregistered firearms, women's clothing, jewelry, an asthma inhaler belonging to one victim, and handcuffs. Blood in a motorhome matched Mona Wilson. The search expanded into the largest crime scene in Canadian history. Over months, investigators sifted through 383,000 cubic yards of soil, collected 200,000 DNA samples, and seized 600,000 exhibits. They discovered human remains in freezers, partial bodies in garbage cans, and DNA from multiple victims on clothing and boots. Pickton was arrested on weapons charges, then re-arrested on February 22nd and charged with murder. In custody, he bragged to an undercover officer that he had killed 49 women and wanted to make it an even 50. Eventually, he faced 26 first-degree murder charges. The preliminary hearing dragged on through 2003. The full trial began in 2007 on 6 counts to keep it manageable. Serena Abotswe, Mona Wilson, Andrea Josbury, Brenda Wolfe, Georgina Papin, and Marnie Frey. The courtroom heard horrific evidence: DNA from victims on farm items, a revolver with a dildo supposedly used as a silencer, night vision goggles, syringes, and tapes of Pickton's associates describing how he handcuffed, strangled, bled, and gutted women before feeding them to pigs. Photos showed Mona Wilson's remains in a slaughterhouse garbage can. The defense tried to cast doubt, but on December 9th, 2007, the jury found him guilty on all 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years, the maximum allowed. The Crown had stayed the other 20 charges because additional convictions would not change the sentence. Appeals went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, which upheld the convictions in 2010. The case forced Canada to confront its failures. The Missing Women Commission of Inquiry in 2012 delivered a scathing report called Forsaken, blaming blatant failures by police, racism, sexism, indifference towards sex workers and Indigenous women, poor coordination between forces, and a refusal to believe a serial killer was at work. It issued 63 recommendations, including better missing persons protocols and support services. The tragedy helped spark the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls years later. Families of the uncharged victims felt robbed of justice, while others were simply relieved the monster was finally locked away. Pickton spent his life sentence in federal penitentiaries, eventually transferred to Port Coquitlam institution in Quebec. On May 19, 2024, another inmate attacked him with a broken broom handle, stabbing him repeatedly in the head. Pickton was left in a coma and died on May 31, 2024. The attacker was later charged with first-degree murder. What happened on that pig farm was not just the work of one evil man. It was enabled by a society that looked away from the most vulnerable. The Downtown Eastside women, mothers, daughters, sisters were treated as disposable until their DNA was pulled from soil and freezers. Robert Pickton's story is a warning. Monsters hide in plain sight. And when the system fails the marginalized, the body count rises until the horror can no longer be ignored. Their names must never be forgotten.